My name is Tiffanie Delune. I am originally from Paris, born and raised in the suburb of Paris from a French mother and a Belgian-Congolese father from Congo-Kinshasa. And I currently live in Lisbon in Portugal. I'm a visual artist, mixed media. I use different mediums and techniques. First of all, interested into the cycles of life, so I'm looking at the natural world in all of its form. I will go from the constellation to underwater, the sea, also cartography, geography, to the galaxy, jungle, forest, deserts. I kind of do my visual research in what I see in my everyday life. So here being in Ghana, but also my previous travels, I take a lot of pictures. I'm someone visually documenting a lot what I live. And then of course I do also do visual research. And so some of the symbolism that you'll see and you see is, as you said, a lot of the moon, the sun, but also the birds. The birds keep coming back in different variation. Here you also have the bats, for example, which is a reference to Ghana. But the way I approach the symbolism, as you mentioned before, is that I do confuse the viewer by giving it maybe 2 to 3 different interpretations. For example, the bat is not necessarily the most visually engaging animal, so I decide to make it light and with white paper cuts instead of black. And also the shape of it, I play around with the cutting so that it's not too aggressive visually speaking. The name of the exhibition, There's Gold on the Palm of My Hand, for me is a reference to the fact that in our hand is a lot of our identity. We have the print, which is what we will use when we are using, the stamps, but also we have our lines, which goes back to our ancestry, and ends is also what we use to make art. So it's the end for me is a very powerful tool, and the idea of the gold is this reference that it's quite fruitful and it's giving, and it's also precious and it's very unique. And of course it is also a reference to the richness of Africa, which for me has been acting every time I came in different countries of Africa. My artistry is constantly evolving during that trip, but also after that trip. It has some sort of ripple effect. So there is a sort of energy and gravity that is happening that nourish my work in an abstract and spiritual way, and it's quite magic. And obviously that's also one of the reasons why the glitter is always here in a very subtle way. I link spirituality, the natural world, and femininity. And identity is very present in my work because most of the work do have reference to my own experiences and do have experience to my, it's an experience of my own spirituality and me navigating this world. So physically traveling to places, as here being in Ghana, and also traveling in my subconscious in a certain way. So it's a crossroad between reality and fantasy, between real memories and experience lived, and my desire and subconscious and dreams coming into play. So obviously I'm not a figurative painter, but I'm also not representing things as they are. I'm constantly playing with the scales, the perspective, the angles, the idea that what you see when you are close to the painting, but also away, will not exactly be the same thing. And here you can really understand my, I will say, intensity and complexity, but rendered in, I hope, a simple and magical way. So that piece is called The Dreamer's Ladder, and for me this is basically this idea of ascension. And so ascension can be individual ascension, spiritual ascension, but also ascension within the art world, and this idea of growth. So personal growth and professional growth, which is something that I've been living a lot, and for the past few years, but especially for the past year, I personally felt I grew a lot personally, but also creatively and professionally. And I think I really took full knowledge and I really acknowledged this during this residency, how much I'm growing and how much I will say, shed old version of me for the new version. And I like this idea here that the black hand being a reference to being in Ghana and Africa as well. And I like this idea that the push is happening here, basically, and is a sort of kind of sending me as a bird somewhere, like, poof, you know? And my work, I'm sure you notice, has a sort of playfulness and cheekiness. And I personally think it's a little bit wink-wink to the art world as well, which we know is often seen as a white space and as also a patriarchal space. So here, for once, the hand is feminine and the hand is black. This is a residency that is organized by Gary 1957, and we are encouraged to come spend time here in Accra, and the duration of it is quite flexible. I personally decided to come for 3 months, which I thought was enough to make a body of work. It could have been more if I wanted to. Less will have been difficult to create a full body of work. And so we work all individually in studios, and we come at different time and finish at different time. You have emerging and young artists, as you have more senior and advanced artists, and you have Ghanaian artists as well as African artists, and as well as foreign artists, and men and female artists, which is quite basically a nice mix, and it creates a cool community of exchange. For me, it's been really refreshing because, first of all, it's the biggest studio I've ever worked in, which is nice, whether in the selling, but also the scale of it. And for that reason, as I mentioned, I was able to lay different canvas together and look at things from different perspectives, but also work on some larger scales work, whether that's the one in the background and these ones, which are quite larger than the regular size I used to make, depending of the moment. In that one, for example, the sun is orange because this is the sun that I've seen here in Cape Coast, and I remember the color being so bright, almost like a sort of, it was sunset, and it was almost a sort of tangerine, and it was so vibrant and so unique and so strong that at some point you didn't even knew anymore if it was the sun or the moon, as strong as it was and very unique. And I remember thinking, this is magic, and I wanted to put it. But I do like to confuse the viewer, so then you also have the moon within the same work. So is it sunset, is it night? And it does happen from time to time that the moon is present during the day, and we no longer know where we are. So that's what I want, because I'm interested into spirited and soulful work, but also confusing senses, let's say, so that your imagination is, I will say, activated at its highest. Overall, it's been absolutely great, and I'm really happy. And I think one of the 2 best compliments I've heard, one was that I make complexity and intensity look easy and effortless, which I love. I think it's a very beautiful compliment. And then the other is that you make spiritual abstraction very appealing and engaging and poetic. And we just want to dig in more and more and more. And many people have told me they don't see so much abstraction sometimes. And it just basically invite them to pay attention and to keep on seeing this kind of body of work more, and not necessarily just mine. So I hope that you will keep on giving in many ways. Like, you never know the full impact of a residency. It has many different ripple effects.
I work in retail. I'm the general manager for Versace Ghana. It looks quite fun. This is not the regular abstract kind of art that I normally see here. So with this art, you can actually see the elements in the art. We have like trees, you can see the roots. I can't make up meaning for all of that, but I could see the element. That is not the regular kind of abstract arts I see here. And the whole presentation with the gold and yellow pops the art, it makes it fun. This is my second time actually in here. My first time was the opening, and then I'm here again.
It's a wonderful exhibition, an interesting use of color and shapes to communicate reality and beyond reality, the metaphysical. This is a thought-provoking and an interesting display of creativity. I believe we have kind of like been exposed to a particular kind of art, and this is new, and it would be wonderful to have like something new like this once in a while.
I actually try to never have expectation when it comes to the reception of the work, and it goes back to what I told you at the very beginning, which is don't think too much about the viewer, because unfortunately it's very rare that you're going to please every single person on this earth. It's almost impossible. So I try to not have any expectation, but I'm very happy that I had really interesting conversation about magic, about play, about spirituality, but I had a lot of people picking some of these elements that I've taken, let's say, from this experience in Accra. I also had an unexpected interpretation of the work, which is also what I told you is what I want. Engage your imagination, your dreams, and your desire, your playfulness in a different way. So that's really interesting. And speaking with a woman artist or male is different, and so you are nourished by this conversation. I love seeing someone in front of my work and giving me a completely different interpretation of what it is, because that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing.